Welcome back to the last daily rundown of the week with me, Dan Morfitt. Thank you for keeping it Channel 7. Cal Doughty and Mike Milling are here. Are you ready for more of the stories of the day?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Just need to sort it out.
Yeah.
Actor Robert Redford has said that technology has taken the magic out of storytelling. In an interview with The Guardian, Robert Redford said, "There's just so much high technology we have today. I think it deprives us of being inventive on our own." Whilst promoting the remake of the film Pete's Dragon, which is a CGI fest, the actor went on to say, "We're relying on stories being fed to us through technology." So what do we think about this? Have we become lazy with storytelling, or does technology open greater avenues to us?
Can I take this just to start with and say that technology absolutely opens more avenues to us? I don't know if you saw Warcraft. Did you ever see Warcraft?
I haven't seen Warcraft, no.
Technology in that...
But it was panned critically.
It was panned critically, I know. Bear with me.
Okay.
A lot of it is bad, but the technology for the orcs in that film is phenomenal, to the point where these orcs feel more human than the actual human acting characters do. The stuff they did with those orcs is amazing. I think if it can do things like that, where you can bring these fantastical creatures to life, then surely it's good when used in the correct way.
But didn't one of those orcs used to be in EastEnders?
Maybe, yeah. He did, yeah. One of the actors.
Oh, was that when they had that orc family?
No.
They
when they were going on that multicultural orc vibe,
yeah.
They moved in.
Get out my pub!
No,
7 foot tall and stood behind a font in the Queen Vic. It was a revelation.
Yeah.
It's more like 9
But
foot.
I mean, I think it was the Mitchell brothers you saw. They're easy to mistake as orcs.
That's the thing, though. Could Warcraft have been made better, and would the storytelling been greater if you just had Grant and Phil against some humans? They're similar to orcs.
Maybe.
But I can see what Carl's saying, but there is the big part of me that just yearns for the old special effects and the old stuff, the John Carpenter in films like The Thing and stuff. If you see like
practical effects.
Yes, you see the practical weird effects and it's just like melted plastic and bubblegum in a microwave or something, and all these little tricks and little things that they use, and that's kind of
tangible, isn't it?
Yeah, but
it's real.
Yeah, and if you watch like films like it's hard to make films like remember like Labyrinth or something like that where everything was made and it's all puppets and stuff, and I get why they're doing
David Bowie's massive balls.
Exactly, that would all be CGI now. But as you say, it's more tangible, but you can see why they do it. It's obviously easier. You've got these whiz kids now that can just you've got a film on a little laptop.
Before, you used to watch a film and you used to wonder, how do they do that? And that was part of the experience of sitting in a darkened room and watching something for 2 hours. Of course, you'd get a chalk ice in the middle and stuff. But now you just go, it's computer generated imagery, it's CGI. We know what it is now. There's none of that mystique there anymore. We know it's created in a massively powerful computer. There's no wonder anymore. But
then it opens up opportunities for lower budget filmmakers and people like, there was a film years ago called Monsters, which was by a British director, forget his name,
Gareth Edwards. Because he's now going to direct Rogue One.
And he did Godzilla, didn't he?
Yes.
But he did Monsters like on his laptop, and it was a monsters film, but it was kind of more character driven. It was focused, and the monsters were kind of in the background a bit, and that was how he got around with not seeing them that much. But he made the whole film essentially on his laptop, and it just shows that you can make new films with this technology. So in that way it is good, but looking at it, I do yearn for that kind of nostalgic.
I think it depends when you use it. Like if you're using it properly, like I mentioned with Warcraft, where this thing couldn't be done without it couldn't look as good if it was done in a previous way, then that's fine. If you've got things like Transformers, where essentially they're designed just to be these CGI massive films, then you've got a bit of a problem. I mean, Ian McKellen, when he did the new Hobbit films, he was essentially put into a green screen room and had to act to nothing, and he cried. At one point he just broke down and he cried, and he says, "This isn't why I got into acting."
It's hard for actors, isn't it?
Sit Ian. Wizard! Sit Ian.
Yeah, I bet he was crying when he got the paycheck as well.
I think that's sort of what Robert Redford is saying here, in that it's not necessarily that the storytelling is harder or it's lessened because of that, but acting, I can't even imagine. It must absolutely be a completely different experience to what it was previously.
No irony is lost that Robert Redford is saying this whilst promoting his new film, Pete's Dragon. And of course, dragons are 10 a penny. They can be found anywhere. This one's not CGI at all. No. It's a real dragon. Bless Robert Redford. So all the President's Men would have been made better with a bit of CGI Watergate in there.
Possibly. I don't know, probably not. But it has to be right for the film. Like, I think if you're just CGIing something in which you could do normally, then it feels cheaper and it feels lazy.
There are some films that are almost completely CGI and nobody realises.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Things like Zodiac by David Fincher, which is all about the Zodiac murderer. They could not recreate San Francisco as was.
No, exactly.
So it's all CGI, and an incredible amount of it was done by green screen. So when you see the making of it, it befuddles you. You can't believe that's...
Yeah, I'd say that as well. Do you know Toy Story? That's all CGI as well. Yeah, weirded me out.
You're telling me the toys don't talk?
Yeah, seriously.
I apologise to anybody watching now that didn't realise that Toy Story was all made up. I'm sorry. Let's move on to our last story for now.
Truth bombs.
Mike. Delays in discharging patients from the hospital have risen 23% since June last year, the NHS in England has revealed. Figures show that every day more than 6,000 patients well enough to leave hospital are unable to do so because their local authority cannot provide any care. The NHS also missed targets in other areas as well, with 91.5% of patients waiting less than 18 weeks for an operation, just below their 92% target. It also missed waiting time targets for planned operations, accident and emergency units and ambulance call-outs. In June, 90.5% of A&E patients were seen within 4 hours. So this new report seems arbitrary, to be honest, because the stats are just stats. It's all about anecdotal evidence. But is enough being done to fund the NHS? Are we investing enough in our great institution?
No. No, it's a simple answer, isn't it? I mean, it's still like, I think it's the third highest funding for the UK. That might have been teaching, one of them. But we're certainly funded very highly compared to everything else in the UK, but it's not enough. Like, you can't really put a price on people's welfare, and even like if the goal is that 100% of people should be seen within 4 hours in accident and emergency, that still seems really high for things that might be accident and emergency.
Yeah, that's the key word.
Yeah, emergency is the key word there. 4 hours for an emergency. That's still too high, which says that there's still issues there which could be helped with better funding.
But flipping that on the other side, don't we as the British public use and abuse the NHS to an extent that sometimes we go to accident and emergency, there's been no accidents and it's certainly not an emergency.
Yeah, I can see that, and totally, and it's going to be so hard, kind of viewing things on a case by case, or it's hard. And as you say, there will be people who go to A&E that might not, maybe, to a doctor's point of view, maybe they shouldn't be there, and then that is going to fill it up, and that's going to have an effect down the line, isn't it?
It's that usual Saturday night high that they always talk about of A&E just being filled with drunks.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Sprained ankles from just drunkenly falling off a curb.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Also, we're not doctors. We don't know what is an emergency and what isn't. If I feel like my throat's closing up, but it's not really, but I feel like it is, maybe that's an emergency for me.
You could be going through anaphylaxis.
I could be, exactly, but I get there and it's all fine. Okay,
you could have just had an aftershock.
Exactly. So I think you can't really necessarily put the blame on people who are going to use these systems, because obviously they feel they personally have a reason to go there. You're not going to go somewhere to wait for 4 hours if you don't personally think you need it. I don't think anyone's intentionally going just to waste people's time. And if more funding was there, then I think these people could be helped quicker and just be told, you don't need to be here, it's okay.
And what do you think about the discharges? Because people aren't being discharged to home because there's no care for them when they leave. So they're staying in hospital beds that are needed by other patients, but they just can't leave.
Yeah.
What are you asking? It's too many, not enough hospital beds.
There's enough hospital beds, but there's not enough homes for people to go back to because there's no support in the local community by the local authorities, the councils. There's people taking up hospital beds.
Right.
that don't need to be there
because
anymore.
they can't leave because the support isn't there for them to leave, and that's a whole other kettle of fish, isn't it? I mean, I don't even know how you'd even, if on one hand you're having to fund the NHS and support of this, it's so many different parts that it must be nearly impossible to go, okay, we fund this much in here, this much in here with a limited budget. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but more funding is good.
It's just
I
one of
guess.
those things, though, that the NHS will get blamed for by saying
Yeah.
the patients are taking up the bed. The doctors need to get more patients in, but it's not the NHS's fault.
Yeah.
They can't cover everything. This is to do with home care. This is to do with local authorities not being able to provide that care. That's a problem, and that's why we're seeing NHS discharges at such a low figure, when actually rising percentage-wise of people just staying in beds when they shouldn't be.
It's a problem when you give targets to this sort of thing, because I don't think you always can predict how long are people going to need, or what the extra circumstances is. Anything could stop people from coming away from the bed that they're stuck in. Like anything could stop that, and it's blaming the NHS for other problems which are out of their control. Like if these people have nowhere to go, that's not necessarily the hospital's fault. They can't just suddenly magic up this place for people to go.
And that's another
And
thing.
they're targeted in a way like, oh, if you don't do this, then you're at fault here. That's another problem entirely.
And that's another problem with statistics, because they just read as numbers on a page. Anecdotal evidence will always be at the extremes of either good care, great care, or terrible care. So it's one of those things that the NHS will always be derided for, but I think we all love it on the sofa.
Of course, absolutely.
Yes.
Right, that's all we have time for in this part of the show. In a few minutes, Cal and Mike will get their something to say. But next, musician Eleanor Nelly. Nelly's on the telly. Will be joining us on the sofa. You're watching the Daily Rundown. Keep it Channel 7.